In the imposing and majestic palace of Marquis Clement Dauphin, grand and detailed preparations were being made for an event that promised to be as magnificent as it was memorable. The approaching night would be a landmark in high society, as it would be the moment when Clara, the future wife of the Marquis, would be formally introduced to the most important figures of the kingdom. The vast halls of the palace were adorned with great splendor and meticulous elegance, decorated with rich tapestries, silk and brocade fabrics, and glittering crystal chandeliers that reflected the light in multiple beams, creating an atmosphere of absolute luxury. Beautiful and delicate floral arrangements, brought from the finest gardens in the kingdom, perfumed the air with a soft and enveloping fragrance. The kingdom's elite, composed of the most influential and powerful nobles, began to arrive, their luxurious and colorful garments shimmering under the light of the chandeliers. Their conversations, discreet but filled with curiosity, revolved around the young bride whom everyone was eager to meet, speculating about her appearance and demeanor. Marquis Clement Dauphin, famous for his vast wealth that seemed endless and his unmatched power that extended beyond the borders of his kingdom, was a man of immense influence and respect. His imposing presence in the kingdom was felt not only through his enormous assets but also through the wisdom he accumulated and the mastery with which he handled political matters, always ahead of his time. Tall and of stately bearing, with dark hair that shone in the light and piercing eyes that seemed to see through anyone, Clement emanated an aura of unquestionable authority and immediate respect. He was admired by many, revered as a just leader, but also feared by some, especially those who knew of his power to shape the fates of others. All agreed, without exception, that his words carried the weight of royal decrees, and his decisions were followed as unbreakable laws in the kingdom. As the eager guests settled in the majestic main hall, where high ceilings and vaulted arches echoed every musical note, the soft melody of a string quartet floated through the air, creating an atmosphere of unparalleled refinement and sophistication. The music, delicate and serene, enveloped the room like an invisible veil of elegance. The servants, dressed in impeccably white uniforms, glided gracefully among the guests, almost as if they were part of the living decor of the palace, offering sparkling crystal goblets filled with exquisite wine from the finest harvests, as well as gleaming silver trays with the most delicious delicacies and carefully selected treats. Every detail, from the gleam of the glasses to the arrangement of the flowers, had been meticulously planned to ensure a flawless evening without fail. Clara, the young bride-to-be of the powerful Marquis, had not yet made her awaited appearance, and the anticipation surrounding her entrance only heightened the tension in the air. Very little was known about her, beyond the fact that she was the daughter of a count from a neighboring kingdom, which only added to the mystery and fascination her arrival stirred among the nobles. This alliance represented not just a familial bond, it promised something much greater. The union between Clara and Clement signified the strengthening of political and economic ties of great value to both families, something that could shape the balance of power of the kingdoms involved for generations. The marriage was seen by all those behind its organization as a strategic move, a calculated step to ensure that the two dynasties would unite indissolubly, guaranteeing peace and prosperity. Clara, however, was much more than just a piece in this political chessboard. She was a young woman with a free spirit, a dreamer's soul, and an adventurous heart. Raised in her father's castle, the count of a neighboring kingdom, she had spent her days dreaming of choosing her own path, exploring the world on her own, and living adventures she could hardly imagine. However, her dreams began to crumble when she learned that her marriage had been arranged with the powerful Marquis Clement Dauphin, a man she barely knew and about whom she knew little, other than his immense influence. Clara, though aware of the numerous political and economic benefits of this union, could not accept the idea of marrying a man who was practically a stranger in her life. Determined to escape this fate, which seemed to her like a gilded prison, she devised a bold and risky plan: to present herself at the grand event of her introduction to society in such an inappropriate and scandalous manner that all the guests, including the Marquis himself, would immediately reject her. Clara deliberately chose an old, faded dress, a garment that bore no resemblance to the lavish and richly decorated creations of silk and brocade that high society ladies wore with pride. Her hair, which was usually impeccable and carefully arranged, was now disheveled, full of knots, as if it hadn't been combed in days. To complete her radical transformation, Clara applied intentionally grotesque makeup. The smeared lipstick covered her lips clumsily, and the black eyeshadow was carelessly spread around her eyes, giving her a dramatic and untidy appearance. Clara even planned to distort her expressions, making faces to appear uglier and more inappropriate, hoping that her image would cause such repulsion that she would be promptly rejected. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the figure reflected. A mixture of fear and excitement ran through her body. The plan she had devised was about to be put to the test in front of all those who awaited her eagerly. With a deep sigh, Clara lifted her head with determination and left her room, ready to face the fate she had decided to challenge. As the crucial moment of her presentation approached, Marquis Clement, already positioned in the hall, remained calm and serene, observing the guests with an expression of absolute composure. Despite his prominent position and the complex circumstances surrounding the arranged marriage, he was determined to treat Clara with the respect and dignity she deserved, regardless of any external factors. He knew that, beyond the political and strategic interests, there was a real person behind this arrangement, and she deserved to be known and understood. When the grand doors of the hall opened for Clara's entrance, all eyes, like arrows, instantly turned toward the young woman, who walked slowly toward the Marquis. The soft sound of music immediately ceased, and a dense, heavy silence filled the room, intensifying the moment. Clara's arrival would not only mark the beginning of an unforgettable evening, but also the start of a story that would unfold in unexpected ways, with much more depth and emotion than anyone could foresee. Clara, maintaining her exaggerated expressions and awkward gestures, was caught off guard by Clement's reaction. She had expected him to reject her immediately, without hesitation, but to her complete astonishment, he was incredibly polite and courteous. This left her utterly bewildered. Even with her obvious attempts to appear ugly and inappropriate, Clement treated her with a dignity and respect she hadn't anticipated. Clara could feel the guests' eyes fixed on her, silently judging, but she kept her head held high, determined not to be shaken by the pressure around her. When she finally stood before the Marquis, he observed her with an enigmatic expression, almost impossible to decipher. The silence that enveloped the hall was nearly palpable, and everyone waited anxiously for the outcome of this encounter. Clara made a slight curtsy, her eyes meeting Clement's with an intense glimmer of challenge and determination. The grand hall, adorned with tapestries and statues, was now filled with whispers, while watchful eyes followed every movement of the young woman. The Marquis mother, the imposing Duchess Leonie, a woman of majestic appearance and impeccable posture, could not hide her shock upon seeing Clara enter with a worn dress and disheveled hair, her makeup crudely smudged. Her eyes, usually cold and calculating, widened in surprise and immediate disapproval. She knew that appearance was one of the most crucial elements in an event of such importance, especially when it came to a first impression. However, the Duchess, being an astute woman and extremely practical in political matters, also understood the vital importance of Clara's union with her son to strengthen alliances between the kingdoms and ensure a prosperous future for both families. Despite her initial disappointment, Leonie maintained her composure, gracefully rising from her ornate chair and walking toward Clara with a forced but determined smile. "Clara, my dear, what a pleasure to finally meet you," said the Duchess in a firm voice, though wrapped in rehearsed affection. "We are all very pleased with this union, which promises to bring benefits for all of us. I am fully confident that you and Clement will make a formidable couple." Clement, closely observing the interaction between his mother and Clara, clearly perceived the veiled disapproval that the Duchess tried to disguise behind her polite words. Though the situation bothered him, he was well aware of the enormous importance of the marriage for the future of his kingdom, both politically and economically. He himself was torn between the duty the marriage represented and his personal feelings, which were still uncertain. He approached Clara with firm, decisive steps, standing tall and confident, his expression serene and controlled. When his eyes finally met Clara's, he immediately caught the determination and challenge in her gaze, and in that instant, he knew that she might not be just a pawn in a great political game, but a person with a strong spirit, her own will and courage. "Miss Clara," he said politely, extending his hand, "it is an honor to meet you." Clara, surprised by the kindness and respect that emanated from his voice, hesitated for a moment, but soon accepted his hand with a slight tremble. "The honor is mine, Marquis Clement," she replied, trying to control the nervousness that was growing inside her. Clement could sense the tension in the air, but with the serenity of a man accustomed to handling delicate situations, he kept his expression calm and welcoming. "I hope you find comfort and well-being in our palace, Miss Clara. We are all eager to get to know you better," he said with a smile that, despite the formality of the occasion, was genuinely warm. Clara, still suspicious, managed a shy but sincere smile. "Thank you for your hospitality, Marquis," she replied, beginning to feel a bit more at ease in the face of Clement's unexpected kindness. As they exchanged formal words, Clara had the opportunity to observe Clement more closely. His deep and intense blue eyes conveyed a kindness she had not expected to find in a man of his position, and his smile, though discreet, seemed to light up the entire hall, dispelling the coldness of the occasion. He was far more handsome and charming than she had imagined, and his kindness seemed authentic, causing her to question, even if for a brief moment, her original plan. However, Clara's determination to avoid the marriage still remained strong in her heart. If you are enjoying this story so far, make sure you are subscribed to our channel, as the next ones will be even more exciting, and you can't miss them. So let's continue. "I hope this night is the beginning of something truly positive for both of us," he said, his voice soft but laden with meaning. "Let us enjoy every moment of this evening, and give ourselves the chance to get to know each other better. There is much to discover about both of us." Despite all the circumstances surrounding the arranged marriage, Clara remained firm in her decision not to marry. She was determined to make Clement reject her. Although the official presentation had gone more smoothly than she had expected, there were still 4 meetings scheduled before the wedding, for opportunities to change the course of her destiny. At the first of these meetings, which would be a walk through the vast and blossoming palace gardens, Clara meticulously prepared to appear even more disheveled than at the previous event. She knew that, to convince Clement that she was not suitable for him, she would have to exaggerate her appearance. She once again chose an old faded dress, something absolutely inappropriate for such an important and formal occasion. Her hair was purposefully tangled, as if it had been neglected for days, and her makeup was once again deliberately poorly done, with smudged lipstick and sloppily applied eye makeup. Clara hoped that, by seeing her like this, Clement would reconsider the idea of continuing with the arranged marriage and finally give up. When Clara arrived at the palace garden, she was met with a breathtaking sight. Flowers of all colors adorned the flower beds, and the towering trees formed a scene worthy of a fairy tale. The light breeze spread the sweet fragrance of the flowers, and the soft song of birds completed the enchanting atmosphere. Despite her anxiety, Clara remained firm in her mission. She hoped that her shocking appearance would be enough to make the Marquis rethink the union. Clement, upon seeing her approach, quickly understood her intentions. He noticed Clara's untidy and disheveled appearance, but to her surprise he showed no sign of displeasure. Instead, he remained calm and courteous as usual. "Miss Clara, it is a pleasure to see you again," Clement said, with a kind and sincere smile that lit up his face. "Shall we take a walk through the garden?" It's a wonderful day for a stroll." Clara, somewhat taken aback by Clement's kindness, hesitated for a moment. She had expected a negative reaction, but he seemed determined to treat her with respect, regardless of her appearance. They began walking side by side, surrounded by the soft fragrance of the flowers and the whispering leaves in the wind, creating an almost magical atmosphere. The silence between them was filled with nature, until Clement finally broke the quiet with a calm voice. "Miss Clara, I know this marriage is not something you desire," he began, with a sincerity that surprised Clara. "In fact, I was also surprised by this decision. I know what it's like to have choices made for us." Clara stopped walking for a moment and looked at him, surprised not only by his words but by the sincere tone with which he spoke them. "I didn't want this," Clara admitted, her voice trembling, filled with repressed emotions. "I always dreamed of choosing my own destiny, of being free to make my own decisions." Clement nodded understandingly, his soft features reflecting a deep comprehension. "I also value freedom very much, Clara. But unfortunately, our positions and responsibilities impose certain duties and sacrifices upon us. This marriage is not just about the two of us, but also about the well-being of our kingdoms," he explained, his voice calm but weighted with significance. As Clement spoke, Clara began to see him in a new light. He was not just the powerful and distant marquis she had imagined. He was a man who, like her, bore the burden of expectations and responsibilities that had been imposed upon him. The way he spoke of his obligations, with such sincerity and consideration, touched something deep within her. "Do you truly care about them, don't you?" Clara asked, her genuine curiosity sparked by the passion she saw in Clement's eyes. "Yes," Clement replied, his blue eyes reflecting the intensity of his commitment. "I believe we must always place the well-being of our subjects above our own desires. It's a sacrifice, no doubt, but it's also a great honor." Clara began to feel a growing admiration for Clement. He was very different from what she had imagined. His sincerity, his commitment to the people, and his sense of duty were rare and precious qualities. Although Clara was still not entirely convinced about the marriage, she began to realize there was more to Clement than she had initially thought. The second meeting took place in a completely different setting. The palace's music room, a cozy and refined space, decorated with carefully arranged musical instruments and adorned with old paintings that told the story of generations. When Clara entered the room, she immediately noticed the sparkle in Clement's eyes and the big smile that lit up his face. He seemed happier than she had ever seen him, almost radiant with a joy that was evident in every gesture. "Clara, I have wonderful news to share," said Clement, his voice full of enthusiasm. "I just found out I'm going to be an uncle. My sister is expecting a baby." Clara, infected by Clement's sincere joy, couldn't help but smile, feeling a wave of warmth pass through her chest. "That's amazing, Clement," she said with genuine delight. "I can imagine how happy you must be with this news." "I'm absolutely thrilled," he responded, smiling even more, his eyes shining with emotion. "The idea of having a child running around the castle is simply wonderful. I can't wait to meet my niece or nephew." Clement led Clara to a comfortable sofa near the fireplace, where soft flames burned. They sat down, and the conversation soon shifted to the excitement of having a child in the family. "I've always loved children," Clement confessed. "They bring such pure energy, a joy that lights up everything around them. The presence of a child always transforms the atmosphere, filling it with life and hope." Clara agreed, captivated by his enthusiasm. "Yes, children have a unique way of seeing the world. They remind us of the simplicity and beauty of small things, the purity we often forget as the years pass." As Clement shared his childhood memories, Clara found herself drawn in by the sincerity and emotion he conveyed. He told stories of running through the castle corridors, exploring every corner as if it were a magical kingdom. Clara, in turn, shared her own memories, speaking of her playtime in the vast fields surrounding her father's castle. During the conversation, Clara began to notice something that had previously escaped her. With each sincere smile, with each spontaneous laugh, Clara's heart beat a little faster. There was a tenderness in Clement that surprised her, and something about his presence made her feel comfortably drawn to him. He wasn't just a marquis. He was a man with a gentle soul and an open heart. His deep blue eyes sparkled with happiness as he spoke, and Clara found herself admiring his soft gestures, the way he slightly tilted his head as he listened, attentively, to every word she said. When the night came to an end, Clara felt confused but also full of hope. She knew there was still much to discover about Clement and perhaps about herself. For the first time, Clara was open to the possibility that this arranged marriage might, in some way, turn into something genuine and profound. The third meeting between Clara and Clement was scheduled for a sunny morning, ideal for a horseback ride through the beautiful surroundings of the palace. Clara had always loved riding, and was eager to share this experience with the Marquis. Once again dressed in a deliberately inappropriate manner, she headed to the stable, where Clement was already waiting for her beside two magnificent horses. One was a handsome chestnut stallion with a gleaming coat, and the other a graceful white mare. Clement seemed excited about the idea of the ride, and as he saw Clara approaching, he smiled warmly, with a kindness that made Clara feel unexpectedly welcomed. "Clara, I hope you're ready for an unforgettable adventure," Clement said with a smile, as he offered his hand to help her mount the graceful white mare, whose mane shimmered in the sunlight. "Good morning, Clement." "I'm more than ready," Clara replied, excited. "I love riding and I can't wait to explore the palace grounds. This place is so vast and enchanting. I'm sure I'll be amazed," she added, adjusting the reins confidently as the soft wind brushed through her hair. They began their ride at a leisurely pace, enjoying every detail of the stunning landscape around them. The deep green fields stretched as far as the eye could see, and the gentle hills seemed sculpted by the hand of a talented painter beneath the bright blue sky. The sound of the horses' hooves on the soft ground mingled with the distant birdsong, creating perfect harmony with nature. As they rode, Clara and Clement talked about their experiences with horses, exchanging funny stories and childhood memories of their adventures. Clement, always elegant with his words, shared memories of his mischief in the castle stables, and Clara, feeling increasingly at ease, sensed her worries starting to fade. Feeling more connected and confident in Clement's company, Clara decided to add a bit of fun to the ride. With a mischievous smile, she looked at Clement and suggested, "What do you think about a race to that hill? I bet you can't beat me." Clement, accepting the challenge with a competitive glint in his eyes, returned her smile. "I accept the challenge, but I must warn you, I'm not easy to defeat. Get ready, because I won't go easy on you," he said with a playful tone. They lined their horses up side by side, ready for the race. At Clara's signal, they took off at full speed, their laughter echoing through the air as they galloped side by side, as if the world around them had disappeared in the thrill of the moment. Clara was determined to win, and for a moment it seemed like she had the advantage. But suddenly, her white mare stumbled over a hidden stone in the path, and what began as a fun game quickly turned into a frightening accident. Clara lost her balance and was violently thrown to the ground. The impact was hard, and she immediately lost consciousness. Her frightened mare kept running, but Clement, seeing Clara fall, stopped his horse immediately, his heart pounding with panic. He dismounted as fast as he could and ran to Clara, his heart racing with worry as he saw her lying unconscious and motionless on the ground. Kneeling beside her, he tried to stay calm as he quickly checked for any serious injuries. "Clara, please wake up," he whispered urgently, his voice filled with genuine concern. The desperation in his eyes was evident. For a moment Clement's world seemed to stop. Seeing Clara lying there so fragile brought forth a wave of emotions he hadn't expected. His heart was racing, and the fear that something serious had happened to her made him forget everything around him. Without hesitation, he took a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped the visible scratch on her forehead, where a small trickle of blood was beginning to flow. Then, Clement looked around for something to help him. Spotting a small water fountain nearby, he ran over, soaked the handkerchief, and hurried back to Clara, gently dabbing the damp cloth on her face in hopes of reviving her. "Clara, you need to wake up," he repeated, his voice now softer but still filled with concern. After a few agonizing moments that felt like an eternity to Clement, Clara finally began to stir. Her eyes slowly opened, blinking against the sunlight filtering through the trees. Seeing Clement's worried face above her, she felt a wave of confusion, followed by relief as she realized she was safe. "Clement," she murmured, trying to sit up but still feeling weak and disoriented. "Stay calm, Clara," he said tenderly, placing his hands firmly yet gently on her shoulders to keep her from moving too quickly. "You fell from your horse and fainted. I'm here. There's no need to worry." Clement sighed with relief as he saw her finally awake. The fear he had felt upon seeing her unconscious was beginning to fade, though the shock still lingered. He looked into her eyes, and for the first time, Clara saw the depth of his concern for her. "Thank you," Clara whispered, touched by the way Clement had cared for her. There was something in his voice, a tenderness she hadn't expected, and it stirred her feelings in a way she hadn't anticipated. "You need to rest for a while before trying to get up," Clement said softly, as he carefully helped her sit up, supporting her back. He sat beside her on the soft grass, still keeping a protective hand on her back, providing the support she needed. "Don't worry, we'll stay here as long as necessary until you feel completely recovered," he assured her, looking at her with a warmth that made Clara feel a new kind of comfort in her chest. As Clara regained her senses and her strength slowly returned, she began to notice the intensity of Clement's feelings. He wasn't just the distant noble she had imagined. No, he was a man capable of showing a tenderness and genuine concern that she never expected. There was something about him that awakened a new and unfamiliar feeling within her, something that made her rethink her previous decisions. "How are you feeling now?" Clement asked, his voice full of softness, but with a hint of lingering anxiety. "A bit dizzy, but I think I'm better," Clara replied, smiling slightly to reassure him, though her heart was pounding, not because of the fall, but because of the closeness between them. Clement returned the smile, relieved, letting out a small laugh to ease the tension. "You really gave me a scare, you know?" he said, trying to hide his relief behind a playful tone. "I don't think I've ever run so fast in my life." Clara chuckled softly, appreciating Clement's effort to lighten the situation. "It wasn't my intention, Clement. I think I was a bit reckless suggesting the race," she said, with a hint of regret. "Don't worry about that now. The important thing is that you're okay," he replied, gently holding Clara's hand with care and affection. "Let's rest a bit more, and then we'll head back to the palace slowly." As they waited, Clara began to feel an increasing connection with Clement. The way he cared for her, the genuine concern in his eyes, and the way he acted with such gentleness made Clara see him in a completely new light. He wasn't just a powerful man with responsibilities. He was someone she could truly feel something deep for. For the first time, Clara realized that despite all the barriers she had built around her heart, Clement was breaking through them, and she allowed herself to accept that feeling. When they returned to the palace, the atmosphere between them was different. Clara looked at Clement with newfound admiration. He was much more than a man of position and power. He was someone capable of showing affection, attention, and kindness. The horseback riding incident had brought the two closer in an unexpected way, and Clara felt the attraction that had started growing during their second meeting intensify in an almost irresistible way. In the days that followed, she found herself constantly thinking about Clement, about the hands that had gently supported her, the protective gaze that had calmed her, and the warm smile she now longed to see. One afternoon, while walking alone through the lush palace gardens, Clara found herself lost in thought. With each step, her mind returned to the moments she had shared with Clement. She had always believed she would keep her heart closed to this arranged marriage, but now, she couldn't ignore the feelings that were beginning to blossom in an unexpected way. "Am I falling in love with him?" she murmured to herself, feeling her heart race at the mere thought of that possibility. Whenever she recalled Clement's sincere smile, the kindness in his words, and the care with which he had treated her, Clara felt a gentle and unexpected joy. And there, in the silence of the gardens, surrounded by flowers and tranquility, Clara understood the truth she had been reluctant to accept. She was falling in love with Clement. Although it frightened her, it also filled her with hope. The final meeting before the wedding was set for a special evening in the palace ballroom, with a candlelit dinner followed by a dance. Clara knew this would be the perfect opportunity to reveal her true feelings to Clement. This time she decided not to hide who she really was. She chose a beautiful dress that enhanced her natural beauty and reflected her true personality. She left her hair loose, cascading freely over her shoulders, and opted for light makeup that highlighted her soft features. She wanted Clement to see the real Clara, without masks or disguises. She was ready to finally be honest with him and with her own feelings. When Clara arrived at the grand ballroom, she was greeted by a magical atmosphere. The candlelight reflected in the golden mirrors, casting a soft glow on the crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, while the marble floor gleamed with elegance. Clement was already waiting for her, impeccable in his formal attire, a black suit with subtle gold details and a silk handkerchief in his pocket, which made him even more imposing. However, as he saw her, what caught Clara's attention the most was the look in Clement's eyes. He smiled, but this time there was something different. His expression was not just one of courtesy or admiration, but of true tenderness and deep appreciation, an admiration that Clara had never noticed before, but now made her feel special. "Clara, you look absolutely stunning," said Clement, his deep, smooth voice as he approached with elegance, extending his hand to gently take hers. His touch, firm yet tender, sent a wave of warmth through Clara's body. "Thank you, Clement," Clara replied, her voice slightly trembling with emotion. "I wanted you to see me as I truly am, without any pretense or disguise." As she said this, her heart began to beat faster, a feeling she was starting to recognize more and more in his presence. They walked together to the table, where dinner awaited them, and soon their conversation flowed light and effortlessly. The tension and nervousness of their first meetings had completely vanished, replaced by a growing, almost tangible connection. Every word exchanged seemed to strengthen the bond between them. Clara's laughter echoed softly in the hall, and Clement, in turn, appeared more relaxed than ever, smiling at her with a calmness that revealed his contentment. The atmosphere around them was warm and intimate, and time seemed to pass slowly, as if the world beyond them ceased to exist for a brief moment. When dinner ended, with the plates empty and the wine gently savored, Clement stood up and, with an elegant gesture, offered his hand to Clara, bowing slightly. "Clara, would you do me the honor of this dance?" he asked, his eyes shining with a mix of affection and expectation. Clara accepted without hesitation, feeling her heart race once again. He led her to the center of the hall, where the soft, enveloping music seemed to play just for them. To the sound of the delicate melody, the two began to dance, moving in perfect harmony, as if they had been born to share that moment. As their bodies moved in unison, Clara felt it was the right time to confess what she had been feeling. She suddenly stopped, holding Clement's hand with a firmer grip, and looked deeply into his eyes, summoning all the courage she had within. "Clement," she began, her voice calm but filled with emotion, "I need to tell you something that's been in my heart for some time. Ever since we met, I tried to resist this marriage, this fate that I didn't choose. I thought it was something imposed on me without a choice. But throughout our meetings, You've shown me a side of you that has deeply captivated me. Your kindness, your care for others, your sincerity. All of this made me realize that I was falling in love with you without even realizing it." Her eyes began to glisten with tears, but they were tears of happiness. Clement was surprised. His lips parted for a moment as he absorbed Clara's words. However, a radiant joy soon lit up his face, and he couldn't contain the smile that slowly formed. He held Clara's hand tighter, as if wanting to ensure she knew how much her words meant to him. "Clara," he said, his voice almost choked with emotion, "I also have something to confess. From the moment I saw your determination and courage, I knew you were someone special, someone who wouldn't easily bend to circumstances. And with each meeting we've had, my respect and admiration for you have only grown. I fell in love with you, not for the image or the expectations of this marriage, but for your heart, for your soul. It's you I want, Clara, exactly as you are." Tears in Clara's eyes became inevitable, but they were tears of pure joy. She had never imagined she would hear those words from Clement, and the sense of relief and happiness was almost overwhelming. "So we're really in love?" she asked, incredulity mixed with hope in her voice. "Yes, Clara." Clement smiled, pulling her closer, wrapping her in a tight and comforting embrace. "And nothing makes me happier than knowing you feel the same." He held her tightly, as if he never wanted to let her go. The soft music continued to play in the background, as if composing the perfect soundtrack for that unique moment. But for Clara and Clement, the world seemed to have stopped. They were immersed in each other, in the warmth of their feelings. When they finally pulled away, still holding hands, Clement looked deeply into Clara's eyes, as if wanting to etch that moment into his memory forever. "We will marry, Clara," he said with unwavering conviction, "and we will build a life together, based on love, respect, and trust. You are everything I've ever wanted and even more." Clara smiled, a smile that radiated love and hope. It was as if, in that moment, all her doubts and uncertainties had been dispelled. "I want that too, Clement," she said, her voice firm, filled with emotion. "We will be happy no matter what happens." She squeezed his hand tenderly, feeling safe and loved. And so, Clara and Clement married in a stunning ceremony, surrounded by friends and family who shared in the couple's joy. The palace was illuminated with unparalleled beauty, and their happiness was visible to all who witnessed them. Their union became a symbol that true love goes far beyond appearances or conventions. It was a love built on the deep connection between their souls, something the entire kingdom would recognize and celebrate for generations. The story of Clara and Clement became a legend in the kingdom, proving that even in an arranged marriage, true love could blossom and create unbreakable bonds. I hope you enjoyed this fascinating story, so make sure to subscribe to our channel and take the time to watch the video now appearing on your screen. See you next time.